goodness. Okay, so I always have to tell people on the preface I'm not much of a public speaker. They're like, that's weird, you talk all the time.
Hi everyone, it's Rochelle with Legacy Home and Garden. Thanks for stopping in, and I think what you're getting ready to watch you are really going to enjoy. If you did not have the opportunity to go to the Lexington Main Library on Augusta Road in Lexington, South Carolina this past Saturday, Jessica and Jeremiah were there, and Jessica was speaking on gardening and then opened it up for question and answer. Now the beginning of the footage, I'm not a professional, it's a little bit bumpy for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then it cut it off for a second, and then it comes back on, but you'll see. But the meat of the conversation is intact, and I think that you will enjoy it. Now, I will let you know that she talks a little bit about their move here, why they moved here, some things like that, but she really goes more into why she gardens. And so it really got me to thinking, because I'd had a conversation a little while back, and my why for gardening in the beginning was, I'm getting older. I'm in my 60s now, and I began thinking about retirement and what am I going to do to fill my time? What do I enjoy? What gives me pleasure? What do I enjoy doing with my husband? And that together is gardening. And so we set out to build a little garden for ourselves that we could maintain now, but work into in our older age. And it has grown from there. But I named my channel Legacy Home and Garden because to me I was leaving a legacy behind to my family, to my grandchildren. I have 9 grandsons, 1 great-granddaughter, and only a spare few of people in my very large family garden. But since I've been gardening and sharing my experiences with my family, my mom is still gardening. My sister has started gardening. My niece has started gardening. My grandson plants cantaloupe and tomatoes now. So the little bit that I've been able to do and share is growing in my own family, but also in here talking about building the homesteading and the gardening community. So I want you to enjoy this, and let me know what you think.
But I tend to get through it. We did move from Central Arkansas here to the Midlands of South Carolina last year over the summer. We visited this area in 2018. At the end of the year, we actually came out here on my 33rd birthday, and we just felt like this was here before, prior to the first time moving. So that was a really cool thing that kind of confirmed that love of legacy that we have. So today there are so many things that I could talk to you guys about sitting in front of a group of people. I could teach you how to start seeds, how to plant a tomato. I could talk to you all about the how of gardening and homesteading and growing food. However, I've made like 1,000 videos covering that, so you can find that on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you about the why, which I find to be way more important, because if you know your why, you will figure out how. But if all you're doing is trying to figure out how, but you don't know why, you will be easily deterred. So for me, homesteading was a lifelong dream. I had this very romantic notion of a big red barn and chickens in the yard and garden rows when I was a very little girl. I grew up in a neighborhood that was not something that I was exposed to a lot, but it was something that I really deeply wanted. Jeremiah and I met each other. We both were single parents, and he had grown up raising food and sworn off of it, but then he met me. He thought, well, I guess she's probably worth it. And we made these plans to have this kind of life. But we sort of harbored that dream for several years, living in town, raising our kids. And that was when I really started to learn this idea of turning your waiting room into a classroom. Because at that time I couldn't have a red barn. I couldn't have chickens because unlike some people, I am a rule follower, and so it stresses me out to break rules. And so I always followed the rules. I didn't have the chickens, but I did learn to grow things in pots and containers. I learned to cook. I learned to forage blackberries on the roadside. And somewhere along the way there, I kind of became a homesteader before I ever had a homestead. So when I was able to sink my hands in the soil, we got our first farm, which was 4 acres in Central Arkansas. It was a foreclosed house. It was a hot mess, to be honest. It had cuss words like spray painted on the side, and it was in our budget, so that was really its going factor. But we turned it into a beautiful farm. We never did get the cuss words off the back. You just didn't see those in videos because we didn't put them in. So that was our first farm, and it was a very special place, and that's where we really became confident in what we were doing. And of course, that's when we went through the COVID year. And what happened, I found, through 2020, was that many Americans saw empty store shelves for the very first time. And prior to 2020, I would not have said security was on our list of why. Maybe in theory, there was this idea of, well, it'll be secure, but we had never felt the real need of that before. And that really validated it for us. So the first why that I really went for, the reason why I wanted to grow food, it was 100% for pleasure. I'd had that romantic notion. I wanted the farm life. I had this idea of just slow living and being close with nature and growing something that I was proud of. And that's when I found heirlooms. I started growing things that I couldn't buy at the store. I was a terrible gardener when I started. I'm just going to tell you. My first garden attempt was a complete and total failure. And then like my second and third weren't very good either. Basically what would happen is it would get really hot and it would get really hard, and I would quit because I went and started plants. I put the yellow squash and the red tomato and the purple eggplant in the garden. And by about July, when it was 100 degrees, Arkansas's temperature and the weather's a lot like here, I would go to the grocery store, and of course all those things were in season, so there would be yellow squash and red tomato and purple eggplant, and they were like 50 cents a pound, and I was like dying trying to grow the exact same thing at home. And that's when I really started to dive into heirloom seed catalogs. And I saw striped green and white squash, and I saw purple tomatoes, and I saw streaky fairy tale eggplants, and I saw things that I never had the opportunity to experience before. And at that point, I found a new why. And it was like, there's more for me to experience when it comes to food and when it comes to what I get to cook, what I get to feed people. There's more than what I have previously experienced, but I've just got to work to get to it. And that's really when I learned the power of why. I learned then that we have to be very realistic about ourselves and what we're willing to go through. Because frankly, we're easily swayed people, you know, I mean, we're easily swayed by convenience, we're easily swayed by our own discouragement. There's a woman that is very special to me. Her name's Julia Child. She was a cook, had cooking shows years ago. Of course, she's since passed away, but if you've ever read anything about her story, she's an incredibly inspiring woman, and she's been an inspiration to me throughout my life. And there was something that she said once in one of her cooking shows. She was flipping potato mash, and she said, "We must muster the courage of our convictions." And I think about that all the time. I think about that when the garden is hard. I think about that when people don't really understand the life that you're choosing. I think we must muster the courage of our convictions. The first why was pleasure. It was growing something that I couldn't otherwise experience. And that's a very good motivator. But I don't know that it's entirely enough, because if pleasure is what you're doing it for, displeasure might be able to stop you. But then I started to raise my kids on a farm, and I saw these things coming out in them, determination and hard work. And I saw them learning skills that I knew would serve them into their adulthood. And then we started a YouTube channel, and people started to listen to what we were saying, and they started to be inspired. You don't have to be an incredible teacher to be an inspiration to people. You have to just honestly do something. You see, I'm not the only person in this room who is capable of encouraging other people to grow their own food. Every time you sow a seed, someone who sees you sow that seed, someone who sees you sow that seed, they get permission. They understand that it's an option for them. we give people options by what we're willing to do. Because unfortunately, people are really limited by what they've seen, right? People watch what other people do to know what's possible for them. And you see people go down the same track, what we call mainstream in our culture. And what they're doing is they're just getting caught up in a current. And I have been very encouraged to watch this current change a little bit over the last couple of years. But every single time you do something as an example, you show other people what is possible for them. I didn't understand this until we started this YouTube channel. I remember the first time I got a message, our channel wasn't very large, but somebody said, I am so encouraged to see that you and Jeremiah like each other. I was like, well, I mean, I'm really encouraged we like each other too. It makes the whole experience a lot more enjoyable, but I started to think about it, and I started to think that a lot of people turn on TV every day, and all they do is they hear husbands complain about their wives and wives complain about their husbands. And I thought, man, if you didn't have parents that liked each other, and you didn't have aunts and uncles that liked each other, and you didn't have people in your community that liked each other, you might not know it's possible to wake up next to the same person for 11 years and still like them.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that's crazy that we weren't trying to set that example. We weren't trying to teach that lesson, but it's just what we were honestly doing. And that's when I learned that legacy is not just the children that you're raising. We give them the first seat at the table, but the truth of the matter is every time we live our life in an authentic way that people can grab hold of, we are building a legacy in the earth. Yeah. And legacy became a massive part of our why. Because it doesn't take that much food to feed a family. I mean, it does when you first start gardening and you're like, hold on, this is all I got out of my whole garden? What in the world? But I'm here to tell you, like 15 years down the road of doing this, you can grow food for your family. You can experience a lot of abundance from a garden, from a small farm. You get 12 chickens, and the next thing you know, you're overrun with eggs. Everybody, by the midsummer, they're giving away tomatoes and zucchinis and all of these different things. It doesn't take a lot to become overrun with abundance. But when we remember those empty store shelves, and we remember the fact that, like right now, I mean, how many of you have seen a headline today talking about formula shortages? Yeah. I mean, how many of you have seen food shortage headlines over the last couple of months? We have to say, okay, there's definitely a problem. Me just doing this for myself, it's not enough. It's not enough. But what if this room full of people, did you ever, when you were a kid, did you ever play in the above ground pool and everybody goes in the same direction until the dad tells you to stop because you're going to break the walls down? Because you make the water go all in the same way. Like, this amount of people in this room is enough to make an impact on the culture. This amount of people living in healthy relationship with legacy minds, growing food because it's important, is enough to change a culture. It really is. We can be that inspiring to people. And that became a massive part of our why, because pleasure in my own life and enjoyment in my own life and food that I'm proud of, it really isn't enough for me. I want other people to experience that, and I want my children to grow up rooted in it. The next thing that became a why for me was stewardship, because I love the earth. The earth is an incredible gift that we get to experience. And I don't know about you, but I cannot drive past the mountain view in North Carolina without just feeling completely small. And when there is a sunset on my farm that looks like the sky is completely painted, I have to sit there for at least a few minutes and just marvel at it. And when I really think about what an absolute miracle every living thing is, I think, man, I get to be a part of this. So I want to tell you guys something really cool about soil, which I think is so fascinating. So there are a handful of parent materials in all soil: sand, clay, loam, and then of course you've got rock and different things there. And inside those we call it geology, which is study of the earth, but inside that geology, in those living things, are all the minerals that the human body needs to thrive. That's so cool, right? But it's not bioavailable. In fact, like, you could have, obviously you have a rock, you have some clay. There's no way for you to get the nutrients and the minerals out of that. And if you grow your food in that, and it's just all of that parent material, the plants don't have a way to get those nutrients out of that. But on a cellular level, in the microbiome of soil, if there's life in that soil. That comes from anything that's ever been alive that's breaking down. So like leaves, manure, carcasses, dead stuff, anything, tree branches, all of the stuff that was once alive and breaking down. That's bringing this biology back. And on a cellular level, those living things can break down that mineral and make every good thing in it bioavailable to the plants. This is why it's so important that we eat stuff that is grown organically, because when we use organic amendments, it actually breaks stuff down in that soil, whereas if we don't, and we're just putting like synthetic chemical fertilizers into the soil, that might feed the plants, but the soil's still dead and all those minerals are locked up. So when we're eating food that's grown by those conventional methods with conventional fertilizers, it's actually nutritionally inferior to if we grew it organically, because all of that life in the soil biome is making those minerals bioavailable. That's fascinating, right? I mean, that's like really, really cool. And when I think about what an intricate, beautiful gift the earth is, that already it contains everything we need to thrive, and all that it needs to unlock that is the process of life and death. I'm like, wow, all we have to do is come along and join in the dance with that. So for me, a big part of the why became stewardship. It became this goal to honor that process, because I look around and I look at all of the ways that agriculture is being handled, and I look at the state of our world, and I look at how the weather is crazy, and you know, we're looking at all of this damage from the way we're handling it. We have to take responsibility. It's the way we're handling it that's causing the problem. And I think we're not honoring the earth for what it is. We're raising pigs in confinement on concrete when they were made to wallow. We're raising cows on spent grain when they were made for grass. We're raising things completely contrary to the way that they were designed, and we're going, man, this isn't going well. And instead of saying, let's go back to the design, we're trying to find other solutions. And I think, and maybe it's naive, and maybe it's romantic, but I think that if enough of us said, nah, I'm gonna honor what this thing was made to do. I'm gonna let the pigs wallow, and I'm gonna let the stuff decay, and I'm gonna let that feed the soil, and I'm gonna eat that. And I'm gonna live this one little life I have honoring the earth in partnership with how it was designed. I think that maybe that could change everything. And it seems like a small solution, but sometimes small solutions take on very big problems. So a why for me became stewardship. So I have the pleasure, and I have the legacy, and I have the stewardship. And that is my why for why I get in the garden. And while all of that may be so big, and some people are like, I really just want to grow a tomato, I don't know what you're talking about. That's fine, that's fine. The tomato you grow will be so much better than the store, and if that's enough of a why for you, go for it, I promise. Like, when you taste that store-bought tomato and you're like, this tastes like disappointment, and then you taste that homegrown tomato, it might be enough to motivate you through those 105-degree afternoons. It's not for me, but I am kind of lazy when it comes to that stuff. So this is my why. It's for pleasure and legacy and stewardship. And then now, I will tell you, it wasn't always, but now it's for security. Because we are seeing headlines, because we are seeing promises of shortages. It's not even a suggestion anymore. It's being promised. But when COVID happened and there was a 2-pack limit on meat, I had freezers full of meat. And I remember walking through the store and thinking, man, we would have to change our entire lifestyle at this moment. I have 5 sons, 2 packages of meat. Like, that's breakfast. Like, that's, I mean, truly, they are hungry. Like, they are so hungry. And I'm thinking, man, people are having to completely restructure the way they consume based on what's available to them. And it really, really inspired me even further, not only to build my own security, but help other people do the very same thing. And that takes me back to the idea of influence, because it's really not enough to have our own security. Because if we are not secure as a society, and we are not secure as a culture, we are not secure. So that's why I'm always telling people, build community. Right now, in this room, there are gardeners from all around this area. I know some people have traveled in a little ways, but like all around this area, these are gardeners that we can be in community in. Gardening does not have to be expensive. It can require initial investment on the front end. You're either going to spend money or time, and sometimes both, depending on where you're starting from and what your soil is like. But gardening does not have to cost an arm and a leg. If somebody's trying to tell you that it needs to cost you a lot of money, I would implore you to look a different place for information. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And it is worth it. Growing your own food is worth it. And I'm lending my why for you today, that you might try it on and maybe see if those things fit. Maybe they don't, and that's okay. Your why might be different than mine. But it's the beginning of the season, and we're not discouraged yet. But sometimes you might get discouraged, and sometimes you might quit. That's okay. I have quit gardening more times than I could count, but I always start the next day. So it works out because I know what my why is. And the things that take me back to the garden is not necessarily that it feels good in that moment, but because I am convicted that it is worthy, and I have mustered the courage of that. So that's my spiel. I'm going to open us up to questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. So if you weren't able to attend, you got the meat of the conversation. Gives you a few things to think about, like, what is your why? It's Rochelle with Legacy Home and Garden, thanking you for stopping by, and I appreciate you very much. Until next time, I love ya.